9 strange archaeological discoveries that scientists refuse to explain. A human skeleton lay undisturbed beneath the earth for 10,000 years. A burial chamber filled with hundreds of perfectly preserved mummies. A room where enslaved people were buried by the catastrophic eruption of Pompeii. And an ancient tomb that unexpectedly revealed a secret about the origins of Egypt's pyramids. Each of these discoveries is like a doorway through time, taking us back to civilizations that vanished thousands or even tens of thousands of years ago. Yet despite everything we have uncovered, many of the mysteries surrounding them remain only partially explained. Hello, and welcome to Ancient History, where the mysteries of the past are uncovered through the passage of time. You know, archaeology is much more than simply digging through layers of ancient soil in search of old artifacts. It is a journey back through time, where every skeleton, every mummy, every tomb, and even every broken piece of pottery has the potential to tell a story that has been buried for thousands of years. Some discoveries help us better understand how our ancestors lived, while others completely overturn what history once led us to believe. What's truly fascinating is that the more archaeologists uncover, the more they realize that countless mysteries still lie hidden beneath the ground, mysteries that humanity has yet to fully unravel. So, on today's journey, we'll travel across some of the world's most remarkable ancient landscapes, from the majestic pyramids of Egypt and the snow-covered mountains of Italy to mysterious cemeteries in Brazil, as well as ancient sites in Sweden, England, and Argentina. Together, we'll search for answers to some of history's greatest questions. What really happened to these ancient people? Who were they? Why were they buried in such unusual ways? And could there be truths that even today's leading scientists are not yet ready to explain? If you're ready to begin this incredible journey, then let's get started. The 172-square-foot room buried for 2,000 years in Pompeii revealed a little-known truth about the lives of Roman slaves. Imagine stepping into a small room that had remained hidden beneath the earth for nearly 2,000 years. There was no gold, no priceless treasure, and none of the luxurious possessions that belonged to the Roman elite. Yet what lay inside immediately captured the attention of archaeologists because it was telling the story of people who had been almost completely forgotten by history. This mysterious room was discovered among the ruins of Pompeii, Italy, a city that once flourished under the Roman Empire before it was buried by the catastrophic eruption of Mount Vesuvius in AD 79. Ironically, the very layers of volcanic ash that seemed to erase every trace of the city ended up preserving a remarkable snapshot of everyday life for nearly 2 millennia. In 2021, while excavating an ancient villa within the Pompeii Archaeological Park, researchers uncovered a room measuring only about 172 square feet. At first glance, it appeared to be nothing more than another small, unremarkable space among Pompeii's countless ruins. But the deeper archaeologists investigated, the more they realized that this room might contain one of the rarest pieces of evidence ever found about the daily lives of Roman slaves. Inside the room, archaeologists discovered 3 wooden beds along with several everyday household items that had been preserved in astonishing condition. 2 of the beds measured about 5 feet 7 inches long, while the third was only about 4 feet 7 inches in length. This difference in size led experts to an intriguing theory. They believe the room may once have been home to a small family of enslaved people. The shorter bed may have belonged to a child or to someone of smaller stature. This suggests that the people living in this room were not simply individual servants working in the villa, but perhaps a real family trying to survive together within the harsh social system of ancient Rome. But believe it or not, that wasn't even the most remarkable part of the discovery. What truly makes this find extraordinary is a collection of objects that seem incredibly ordinary. Archaeologists uncovered pottery jars, water containers, and even a personal chamber pot. That may not sound especially impressive at first, but these simple household items have allowed researchers to reconstruct a way of life about which we previously knew very little. Can you picture it? Nearly 2,000 years ago, people woke up every morning in this very room. They drank from those water jars, rested on those simple wooden beds, and quietly carried out their daily work in the household of a wealthy Roman family. That is exactly why this discovery is considered so significant. When we think about ancient Rome, we usually hear stories about powerful emperors, legendary warriors, and magnificent architectural achievements. Rarely do we think about the millions of enslaved people whose labor helped build and sustain the empire's prosperity. According to Italy's Minister of Culture, Dario Franceschini, the newly discovered room has given scientists a much clearer understanding of everyday life in ancient Pompeii, especially the lives of enslaved people, a group about whom history has preserved surprisingly little information. However, one detail inside the room has raised an important question among experts. Archaeologists found no signs of iron bars, locks, chains, or any of the restraints commonly associated with slavery. So if this truly was the living quarters of enslaved people, why was there no evidence of physical confinement? The answer may lie in the very nature of slavery in ancient Rome. According to the directors of the Pompeii Archaeological Park, controlling enslaved people did not necessarily require iron bars or chains. Instead, the system was maintained through dependence, rigid social rules, and the unequal power relationship between masters and those who served them. A room measuring just 172 square feet, 3 simple wooden beds, and a handful of ordinary household objects may seem insignificant at first glance. Yet together, they tell a powerful story about a world that disappeared long ago. This discovery reminds us that history is not shaped only by kings, famous battles, or spectacular treasures. Sometimes, a single small room buried beneath the earth is enough to reveal an entirely different side of the past, a glimpse into the lives of ordinary people whose quiet existence unfolded within one of the greatest civilizations in human history. 5,000-year-old tomb in Minya reveals the secret behind the birth of Egypt's pyramids. Have you ever wondered how the ancient Egyptians built their tombs before the massive pyramids that amaze the world today ever existed? Did these extraordinary stone monuments appear suddenly, or were they the result of centuries of experimentation and architectural development? If you've ever asked yourself that question but never found a satisfying answer, then join me on a journey to southern Cairo, Egypt. There, a remarkable archaeological discovery is helping scientists piece together the answer. Deep beneath the ancient soil at the Jabal al-Tayr archaeological site, located on the eastern bank of the Nile River in Minya province, south of Cairo, archaeologists uncovered an extraordinary find. The area has long been recognized by researchers as an important ancient cemetery that was used continuously for thousands of years across different periods of Egyptian civilization. Here, archaeologists discovered 2 tombs more than 5,000 years old, dating to Egypt's early dynastic period, which lasted from approximately 3,100 BC to 2,686 BC. This was one of the most significant eras in Egyptian history, when the ancient Egyptian state was just beginning to take shape and the earliest foundations of royal architecture were emerging. According to experts, these 2 tombs are far more than simple burial places. They are like books carved in stone, preserving evidence of how ancient builders gradually refined their construction techniques over time. The most striking feature was found in the first tomb. Archaeologists discovered that its walls were built using an unusual design. The higher the walls rose, the thinner they became. This construction method is considered an important milestone in the evolution of ancient Egyptian architectural thinking. Even more fascinating, this design may represent an early step toward the development of Egypt's later pyramids, particularly the Step Pyramid of Djoser, one of the earliest pyramids ever built. Of course, the first tomb has not survived completely intact. Over the centuries, portions of the structure were likely dismantled by later generations, who reused its stone as building material for other construction projects. Even so, the surviving sections continue to provide invaluable information about ancient Egyptian engineering techniques. Within the excavation area, researchers also found evidence that ancient builders possessed remarkably precise stone-cutting methods. In addition, they uncovered traces of large wooden support systems that had once been used to reinforce the walls during construction. These seemingly small details suggest that ancient Egyptian builders possessed a far more advanced level of engineering than many people had previously imagined. The discoveries did not end there. Archaeologists also uncovered a second tomb to the south with a nearly identical design. Unlike the first, however, this structure was preserved in much better condition because it had escaped the later stone quarrying that damaged the earlier tomb. Preliminary studies revealed that the design of both tombs at Jabal al-Tayr bears a remarkable resemblance to the tomb of King Den at Abydos, one of the most prominent rulers of Egypt's first dynasty. King Den's tomb is recognized as one of the most architecturally advanced monuments of its time, particularly because it is the earliest known royal tomb to feature a staircase leading down into the burial chamber. The similarities between the Minya tombs and King Den's tomb strengthen the theory that these sites may have shared the same architectural tradition during the formative years of the ancient Egyptian state. But the story doesn't end there. In addition to the two 5,000-year-old tombs, the archaeological team also uncovered part of a cemetery dating to both the pre-dynastic period and the late period at Jabal al-Tayr. There, researchers found human skeletons buried in tightly flexed or crouched positions, wrapped in mats woven from plant fibers. Although most of the organic material had decomposed over thousands of years, the remains still provide important clues about ancient Egyptian burial customs before the construction of the Great Pyramids. It is fair to say that the discovery in Minya is about much more than two ancient tombs. It represents a missing piece of the puzzle, helping scientists better understand how the ancient Egyptians gradually transformed simple burial structures into monumental architectural masterpieces that would forever change the course of human history. Perhaps the most exciting part is that the excavation at Jabal al-Tayr is far from over. Archaeologists believe this ancient landscape still holds many secrets waiting to be uncovered. Hidden beneath layers of sand and stone may be future discoveries that will continue to reveal how one of the world's greatest civilizations developed the knowledge and skills needed to build wonders that have inspired humanity for thousands of years. So, let's look forward to seeing what remarkable discoveries archaeologists will bring us next in the years to come. 86-million-year-old skeleton of an ornithophytic dinosaur has been found in Argentina. Imagine a world tens of millions of years ago, when there were no humans, no modern cities, and no signs of civilization. Back then, the land we now know as Argentina was home to countless strange creatures, including dinosaurs that have long since vanished from the face of the earth. Why do I say that? Because a recent discovery in southern Argentina has given scientists another remarkable window into that ancient world. The discovery is the fossilized remains of a new species of bird-hipped dinosaur, a plant-eating animal that lived approximately 86 million years ago. This remarkable discovery was announced by Argentine scientists on March 25th. The fossil was unearthed in Neuquén province in southern Argentina, a region long regarded as a treasure trove of fossils because so many important dinosaur remains have been discovered there. But this time, what captured researchers' attention was not only the fossil's incredible age, it was also the fact that it belonged to a species completely new to science, which has been named Mahuidar cursor. Can you imagine it? Millions of years before humans ever appeared, a dinosaur measuring about 20 feet in length once roamed the land that is now Neuquén, searching for food and surviving in a world completely different from our own. Today, only a handful of fossilized bones remain, yet those bones preserve a story spanning tens of millions of years. According to researchers, Mahuidar cursor belonged to the group of bird-hipped dinosaurs known as Ornithopoda, a group of herbivorous dinosaurs within the order Ornithischia. Unlike the giant predatory dinosaurs that often capture our imagination with their razor-sharp teeth and terrifying power, ornithopods were much gentler animals. They fed primarily on plants and played an essential role in prehistoric ecosystems. Scientists say the Mahuidar cursor individual that was discovered was a medium-sized dinosaur, measuring about 20 feet long. However, one fascinating detail is that it had not yet reached full maturity when it died. This means the animal would likely have grown even larger as an adult. After completing the initial research, the fossil of Mahuidar cursor will become part of the paleontological collection at the Rincón de los Sauces Municipal Museum in Neuquén province, Argentina. There, scientists will continue studying its anatomy to gain a deeper understanding of both the species itself and the evolution of herbivorous dinosaurs that once lived across South America. Perhaps the most significant aspect of this discovery is where the fossil was found. According to Cruzado Caballero, the lead researcher studying Mahuidar cursor, although Neuquén province has produced many important dinosaur fossils over the years, this is the first time an ornithopod dinosaur has ever been discovered in the Neuquén Basin. This is an extremely important finding for paleontologists because it provides valuable new evidence for understanding how dinosaurs were distributed across the Earth tens of millions of years ago. The ornithopoda were a significant part of dinosaur evolutionary history. They first appeared during the early Jurassic period, beginning around 200 million years ago, continued to thrive throughout the Cretaceous period, and eventually spread across all 6 major continents before disappearing approximately 65 million years ago, along with many other dinosaur species. A fossil skeleton may seem insignificant compared to the immense history of our planet, but every fossilized bone is like a key that unlocks the door to the distant past. As you can see, discoveries like Mahuidar Cursor help us better understand the remarkable creatures that once ruled the Earth and reveal how the ancient world changed over millions of years. And that's what makes discoveries like this so fascinating. 10,000-year-old cemetery hidden beneath a Brazilian city reveals the secret of the first people to live in the Americas. What would you think if I told you that beneath a site originally planned for a modern housing development, archaeologists uncovered evidence of people who lived there thousands of years before the world's great civilizations even emerged? Not just a few isolated artifacts, but an entire ancient cemetery containing dozens of human skeletons and thousands of buried objects that had remained undisturbed underground for approximately 10,000 years. It sounds unbelievable, doesn't it? Yet that is exactly what happened. Not in some remote corner of the world, but in São Luís, the capital and largest city of Maranhão state in northeastern Brazil. There, archaeologists uncovered an ancient cemetery containing more than 40 human skeletons, along with thousands of burial artifacts dating back as far as 10,000 years. It is considered one of the most significant archaeological discoveries ever made in the region because it is helping scientists rewrite the story of the earliest people who lived there. What makes the discovery even more remarkable is that the first skeletons uncovered do not appear to belong to the Sambaquian people, the coastal hunter-gatherers long believed to have inhabited this region in prehistoric times. Instead, researchers believe they may have belonged to a mysterious ancestral community that lived there even before the Sambaquian people arrived. The ancient cemetery was discovered at Rosane Farm, a site that had originally been designated for a government housing project in Brazil. During the initial survey, however, archaeologists realized the area was far from ordinary. Beneath the modern surface lay an extraordinary archaeological site that was later recognized as an ancient urban cemetery situated between 2 rapidly developing parts of the city. It's hard to imagine that beneath today's busy streets and modern buildings lie traces of people who lived during prehistoric times, isn't it? In fact, researchers have long known that São Luís, also known by its indigenous Tupi-Guarani name Upaon Ashu, meaning Great Island, had once been inhabited by ancient peoples. Before this latest discovery, archaeologists had already uncovered a prehistoric jawbone at Rosane Farm back in the 1970s. In addition, numerous stone tools and other artifacts found throughout São Luís had previously been dated to around 6,000 years ago. However, it wasn't until a new excavation began in June 2019 that a much larger story started to emerge. At first, the research team found only broken pottery fragments and stone tools. No one suspected that a large ancient cemetery lay hidden beneath them. It wasn't until 2020, when the COVID-19 pandemic was spreading across the globe, that archaeologists discovered the first human skeleton buried just about 2 feet below the surface. From that moment on, the site's secrets slowly began to unfold. By the end of the excavation, researchers had uncovered 43 human skeletons along with approximately 100,000 artifact fragments. These remains were distributed across at least 4 distinct sediment layers, indicating that the site was not used just once. Instead, people returned to live there during at least 4 different periods, spanning roughly 8,500 years. According to the project's lead archaeologist Wellington Lodge, the individuals whose remains were discovered were relatively small in stature. The tallest stood only about 5 feet 3 inches tall. Most of the skeletons belonged to adult men, although the remains of 2 children were also identified. One of the most important discoveries was the deepest skeleton found at the site, buried nearly 6.5 feet below the ground. To determine its age, scientists used optically stimulated luminescence (OSL) dating, a technique that measures the last time minerals surrounding the skeleton were exposed to sunlight or heat before being buried. The results indicated that the individual lived sometime between 7,000 and 10,000 years ago. This suggests that a previously unknown pre-Sambaquian population may once have lived in the Maranhão region, something scientists had never before recognized. Based on these findings, archaeologist Sara Batista of Brazil's National Institute of Historic and Artistic Heritage, Ive Han, stated that these are the oldest dates ever recorded in Maranhão state. They belong to the early and middle Holocene, a period that began approximately 11,700 years ago and continues to the present day, a time during which humans were expanding across the Americas. To establish an even more precise timeline for each archaeological layer, scientists also sent samples to beta analytic laboratories in the United States for radiocarbon dating. This analysis has allowed researchers to identify several different populations that occupied the site over thousands of years, including the mysterious pre-Sambaquian community, the Sambaquian people, Amazonian Tupi cultural groups, and the Tupinamba, a branch of the Tupi people who lived along Brazil's Atlantic coast and came into contact with Europeans after AD 1500. So if I say that a 10,000-year-old cemetery hidden beneath the heart of a modern city is far more than just another archaeological discovery, I wouldn't be exaggerating at all. It is, in many ways, a time capsule, preserving the story of some of the very first people ever to set foot on this land and offering us an extraordinary glimpse into the earliest chapters of human history in the Americas. 5,000-year-old tomb in Sweden reveals the oldest known pandemic in human history. An invisible disease once swept through human communities thousands of years ago, causing even thriving cultures to decline and disappear. With no medicine, no modern medical knowledge, and no understanding of what was happening, prehistoric people could only watch as their loved ones vanished one after another. This is the story of a young woman who lived 5,000 years ago and was recently discovered by archaeologists in Sweden. The story begins with a remarkable discovery in Falköping, a region of Sweden where archaeologists uncovered an ancient tomb dating back approximately 5,000 years. Inside the tomb were the remains of a young woman believed to have died at around 20 years old. At first, archaeologists thought this was simply an ordinary burial site belonging to people of the Neolithic period. But after conducting deeper analysis using modern DNA technology, they discovered something that shocked researchers around the world. Inside the woman's remains, they found the oldest known evidence of the plague-causing bacteria ever discovered, a microscopic organism, invisible to the naked eye, that had once existed inside the body of a woman who lived around 5,000 years ago. And this discovery may help scientists uncover one of the greatest mysteries in human history, the dramatic decline of Neolithic communities across Europe. According to researchers from the University of Gothenburg, the bacteria discovered in the remains belonged to an ancient strain of Yersinia pestis, the same type of bacteria responsible for the plague, a disease that caused some of the most devastating pandemics humanity has ever experienced. Previously, many studies suggested that Yersinia pestis originated in Asia. Therefore, finding evidence of this bacterium in Falköping, Sweden, dating back 5,000 years, came as a major surprise to scientists. Carl Goran Sjögren, a researcher at the University of Gothenburg, explained that the new evidence suggests this ancient disease may have emerged from the cultural region north of the Black Sea before spreading both eastward and westward through the human communication networks that existed at the time. In other words, the first pandemic in human history may not have originated from a single location. Instead, it may have traveled alongside human expansion and interaction. So, what allowed this disease to spread so widely in a world without airplanes, modern cities, or today's transportation systems? The answer lies in the way human societies were changing. Around 5,000 to 6,000 years ago, human communities across Europe and Eurasia began becoming more connected than ever before. They traded goods, traveled across vast territories, and created networks linking different groups of people together. Ironically, these growing connections also created the perfect conditions for Yersinia pestis to spread rapidly from one community to another. By analyzing multiple genetic datasets, scientists discovered that several different strains of plague bacteria had circulated throughout Eurasia during the period between approximately 5,000 and 6,000 years ago, and the consequences may have been a severe population crisis. Neolithic communities throughout Europe experienced a dramatic decline during this period. For years, the reason behind this disappearance remained one of the biggest mysteries in archaeology and human history. However, the discovery at Falköping is providing an important clue, suggesting that disease outbreaks may have played a major role in this ancient catastrophe. What makes this discovery truly remarkable is not only the bacteria found within the remains, but also the young woman herself, the unknown person buried inside that ancient tomb. She was once a real human being. She lived in a community, had a family, and had her own personal story. But 5,000 years ago, she became part of something much larger, a pandemic that may have transformed the entire history of Europe's population. A 5,000-year-old skeleton has become a key that allows us to look back into one of the darkest chapters of the human past. It reminds us that human history was not shaped only by powerful kings, great wars, or magnificent civilizations. Sometimes, history can also be changed by tiny organisms that are invisible to the human eye. Cat mummies and giant scarab beetles discovered in 7 ancient tombs at Saqqara, Egypt. You know, the world of archaeology is truly fascinating. Sometimes, mysteries remain unsolved for thousands of years, waiting patiently for someone to uncover their secrets. But there are also moments when a single excavation deep beneath the ground is enough to make humanity look at history in an entirely new way. And at Saqqara, located south of Cairo, Egypt, archaeologists experienced one of those extraordinary moments. Instead of discovering golden jewelry or magnificent treasures belonging to ancient kings, they uncovered something far more unusual: dozens of cat mummies, giant scarab beetles that had been mummified, and an ancient tomb that may have remained untouched for thousands of years. This discovery was announced by Egyptian archaeologists on November 10th of the previous year. The excavation site was located within the pyramid complex of King Userkaf, the first ruler of Egypt's 5th dynasty. During 6 months of excavation, the research team uncovered a total of 7 ancient tombs. What surprised everyone was that these tombs contained extensive evidence of animal worship practices in ancient Egypt. Most notably, this was the first time archaeologists had discovered mummified giant scarab beetles during an excavation at Saqqara. 2 scarab beetle mummies were found in remarkably well-preserved condition, placed inside a limestone sarcophagus. According to Mustafa Waziri, Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, this was a discovery that was both very rare and extremely unusual. Although ancient Egyptians mummified many different types of animals, finding perfectly preserved giant scarab beetle mummies is an exceptionally rare occurrence. So why did scarab beetles hold such an important place in ancient Egyptian culture? To answer this question, archaeologists explain that for the ancient Egyptians, the scarab was not simply an ordinary insect. It was considered a symbol of rebirth, new life, and the eternal cycle of the sun. Therefore, the discovery of scarab beetle mummies reveals the special role this creature played in ancient Egyptian religious beliefs. But the mysteries of Saqqara did not end there. Among the 7 discovered tombs, 3 were used specifically for burying cat mummies. Ancient Egyptians had a special connection with cats because they believed these animals were associated with Bastet, the goddess representing protection, family, and fertility. Archaeologists discovered dozens of cat mummies, along with numerous wooden cat statues and a bronze statue of the goddess Bastet. They also uncovered statues representing other animals, including lions, cows, and falcons. In addition to the animal burial areas, another discovery also attracted significant attention: a tomb belonging to Khufu Imhat, an individual who once served as an administrator responsible for managing royal palace estates. This tomb was built during the 5th dynasty, sometime between 2500 BC and 2350 BC during Egypt's Old Kingdom period. According to experts, the structure is likely still intact and may contain many additional secrets waiting to be uncovered. But the discoveries did not stop there. Besides the mummies and ancient statues, the research team also found many other artifacts, including wooden coffins decorated with images of cobras and crocodiles, necklaces, writing tools, ancient papyrus, and canopic jars, special containers used to preserve internal organs during the mummification process. Because of these remarkable discoveries, archaeologists have decided to continue excavating the tomb of Khufu Imhat in the following weeks to learn more about the lives of officials who once served the Egyptian royal court. Until then, we can only wait and see what new secrets this ancient tomb will reveal. The mysterious Anglo-Saxon grave of a woman buried with an entire cow in England. What would you think if archaeologists told you that they had just opened an ancient grave and discovered the remains of a woman lying beside the complete skeleton of a cow? Would you think it was a sacrificial ritual, a strange ancient custom, or perhaps something even more mysterious was being hidden beneath the surface? It may sound unbelievable, but this is a completely real archaeological discovery, and it has caused researchers to ask many questions about ancient society in England more than 1,500 years ago. This remarkable discovery was made in the village of Oakington, Cambridgeshire, England. During the excavation of an Anglo-Saxon cemetery at the site, students from the University of Manchester and the University of Central Lancashire uncovered a burial unlike anything previously recorded. Inside the grave were the remains of a woman, but what truly shocked everyone was what was lying beside her, a nearly complete skeleton of an entire cow. As you know, we often hear about ancient warriors being buried with horses to demonstrate their status or prepare for their journey into the afterlife. But a woman being buried with a cow is something almost never seen in archaeological records from England, isn't it? In fact, even the excavation team initially believed they had discovered a horse burial. Jake Nuttall, a student who participated in the excavation, recalled that when the first bones began to appear, the entire team was extremely excited because they thought they had found the skeleton of a horse. However, after experts conducted a more detailed analysis and determined that the remains actually belonged to a cow, their surprise became even greater. According to him, the burial of a warrior with a horse was something already known in archaeology, but a woman buried with a cow was something completely new and unexpected. Dr. Duncan Sayer, co-director of the excavation from the University of Central Lancashire, explained that animal burials within graves were already extremely rare. Before this discovery, only 31 cases of animal burials had been recorded across all Anglo-Saxon cemeteries in England, and all of them were associated with male graves. That is why the Oakington burial represents an entirely new milestone. It is the first known example of an Anglo-Saxon woman being buried with an animal during the late 5th century. But why was it a cow? According to experts in Anglo-Saxon society, a cow was far more than just livestock. It represented wealth, food resources, economic strength, and the prosperity of an entire household. In other words, sacrificing a cow and placing it in a grave with the deceased would have been an extremely expensive decision. This suggests that the woman buried there must have held a very special position within her community, and the objects discovered inside the grave further support this theory. Archaeologists found an intricately crafted brooch, along with hundreds of beautifully made decorative beads created from amber and glass. Most remarkable of all was an almost perfectly preserved set of iron keys attached to a belt. According to Dr. Duncan Sayer, in Anglo-Saxon society, keys were not simply tools used for opening doors. They were also symbols of authority and responsibility for managing household possessions or even a large estate. He believes this woman may have been a highly respected individual in the region, possibly the head of a household or a community leader within a society where women held significant authority. The objects buried with her may have represented the respect and honor that people wanted to show her during her funeral. Dr. Faye Simpson from the University of Manchester also agrees with this interpretation. She explained that a cow was an extremely valuable possession. It provided food, carried economic importance, and was not something a community would easily choose to sacrifice. Therefore, the decision to bury an entire cow with this woman suggests that they wanted to give her a special honor, something that certainly would not have been granted to just anyone. But the discovery does not end there. Dr. Sayer also emphasized that cow burials were already extremely rare throughout Europe. Therefore, the Oakington discovery is not only unusual, but also highly valuable for understanding the history and culture of the Anglo-Saxon people. You see, sometimes a human skeleton or a few pieces of jewelry are not the most surprising discoveries. The most fascinating clues often come from the way ancient people chose to bury their loved ones. Those burial practices reveal the beliefs, social status, and values that mattered most to them. What do you think? Do you agree, or do you have another interpretation of this mysterious burial? If so, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's discuss it together. The complete 5,000-year-old skeleton of the Lady of Intrad discovered in the Alps. Among the snow-covered peaks of the majestic Alps in northern Italy lies a small village called Intrad. For centuries, this peaceful place has been surrounded by forests, green hillsides, and breathtaking landscapes that seem completely ordinary. However, beneath the quiet ground of this beautiful valley, a secret had been resting silently for approximately 5,000 years, waiting for the moment when humanity would finally uncover it. That secret was an ancient burial site recently discovered by archaeologists. Imagine standing before a tomb that is around 5 millennia old. What would you expect to find inside? Perhaps bronze jewelry, ancient pottery, or maybe tools once used by prehistoric people? But this time, none of those things were discovered. Instead, archaeologists found only the complete remains of a woman lying beneath the earth, almost entirely untouched and with virtually no burial objects placed beside her. And it was this mysterious emptiness that made the discovery more fascinating than ever. The skeleton was uncovered by Italian archaeologists on a hillside in the village of Intrad, located in the Aosta Valley of the Alps in northern Italy. After careful research, scientists determined that this woman lived approximately 5,000 years ago. What amazed the research team was the nearly perfect preservation of her skeleton. After thousands of years beneath the ground, many of her bones remained remarkably intact, providing researchers with a rare opportunity to study the lives of prehistoric people. Because of this, archaeologists gave her a respectful nickname, the Lady of Intrad. Just hearing that name is enough to show how this ancient woman has become a special figure in Italian archaeology, doesn't it? But what you may not know is that the deeper scientists investigate, the more questions they discover rather than answers. As you know, ancient graves dating back thousands of years often contain many objects buried alongside the deceased. These items may include jewelry, tools, pottery, or personal belongings that reveal the identity, social status, and lifestyle of the person buried there. But this burial was completely different. Archaeologists found no objects or possessions besides the woman's own remains. No bracelet, no blade, no piece of pottery. This absence has made it much more difficult to uncover the true identity of the Lady of Intrad. Who was she? What social group did she belong to? Why was she buried in such an unusual way? Until today, all of these questions remain unanswered. Even more fascinating is that this woman lived around the same time as another famous archaeological figure known throughout the world. That figure is Ötzi the Iceman, the naturally preserved mummy discovered about 20 years ago inside a glacier in the Trentino Alto Adige region, near the border between Italy and Austria. Both individuals lived approximately 5,000 years ago, but their stories unfolded in completely different ways. While Ötzi was preserved almost perfectly by nature inside permanent ice, the Lady of Intrad was preserved beneath the soil of an alpine mountainside. Two people, two different stories. Yet both discoveries are helping scientists better understand the lives of prehistoric European communities. Today, the remains of the Lady of Intrad have been transferred to a laboratory where they are being preserved and studied using modern scientific technology. Researchers are conducting various analyses to determine her exact age, health condition, diet, and possible cause of death. Each new discovery may provide another valuable piece of the puzzle, helping scientists understand what life was like in the Alps thousands of years ago. But perhaps the most beautiful part of this story comes from the local people themselves. For the residents of Intrad, this woman is no longer just an unknown skeleton. They see her as a part of their homeland's history, a distant ancestor who once lived on the very land they call home thousands of years ago. In fact, children from the local kindergarten were even given the opportunity to choose the official name for the Lady of Intrad as a way to connect the past with the present and show respect for the woman who had been peacefully resting for 5,000 years. A truly fascinating discovery, isn't it? And that is exactly why archaeology is so important. Without it, we might never truly understand how people from the distant past lived, suffered, and left behind stories waiting to be discovered. Dear friends, we have now explored together 9 of the strangest archaeological discoveries in the world, where every skeleton, every mummy, and every ancient tomb hold stories that go far beyond our imagination. Although science has made incredible advances, there are still countless mysteries that researchers have yet to fully explain and uncover. So, which discovery surprised and impressed you the most? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the Ancient History channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our next fascinating journeys of exploration. And now, thank you for watching. Goodbye, and see you again in the next adventure.